What if I told you one simple drink helped change human history forever? Not gold, not weapons, not even bread. Thousands of years ago, long before cities, kings, or written language existed, early humans accidentally discovered something incredible. A forgotten bowl of fruit or grain began to ferment on its own. Curious enough to taste it, they experienced something they had never felt before. That unexpected discovery would eventually become one of the oldest traditions in human history. But this isn't just the story of alcohol. It's the story of how one drink may have helped bring people together and change the course of civilization. But was alcohol really discovered by accident? Or were our ancestors actually looking for it? But here's where the story gets interesting. For a long time, people believed alcohol was discovered completely by accident. A forgotten bowl of fruit, a little heat, a few days later, and nature did the rest. But modern archaeologists aren't so sure anymore. Some researchers now believe early humans may have noticed fermentation happening over and over again. Instead of ignoring it, they started repeating the process on purpose. If that's true, alcohol wasn't just discovered. It became one of humanity's very first inventions. The oldest known alcoholic drink wasn't discovered in Europe. It was found in China. In Duhizad Chahar, archaeologists analyzed ancient pottery from a village called Jiahu. Inside those clay jars, they found chemical traces of a drink that was made nearly 9,000 years ago. It wasn't beer, it wasn't wine. It was a unique mixture of rice, honey, and wild fruit, naturally fermented into one of the oldest alcoholic drinks ever discovered. Long before pyramids, long before Rome, people were already raising a cup together. Imagine holding a cup made 9,000 years ago. Inside wasn't water. It wasn't juice either. Scientists discovered traces of rice, wild grapes, honey, and fermented fruit stuck to the inside of ancient clay jars. This wasn't just a random drink. It took planning, ingredients, and time. That means people were already experimenting with fermentation thousands of years before the first pyramids were built. Without realizing it, they had unlocked one of nature's most fascinating chemical reactions, and they were only getting started. Then, everything changed. Around 5,000 years ago, in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerians transformed fermentation into something much bigger. Beer was no longer just an experiment. It became part of everyday life. Workers drank it, farmers received it as payment, families made it at home. Even temples brewed their own recipes. For the first time in history, alcohol became more than a drink. It became part of an entire civilization. But the Egyptians would take beer to a completely different level. When the Egyptians built one of the greatest civilizations in history, beer was already part of everyday life. It wasn't just something people drank at parties. Beer was served with meals, offered during religious ceremonies, and included in food rations for many workers alongside bread and other supplies. Rich or poor, almost everyone drank it. Because the Nile River wasn't always safe to drink from, lightly fermented beer could often be a more reliable everyday beverage. To the ancient Egyptians, beer wasn't a luxury. It was part of life itself. But Egypt wasn't the only civilization that loved alcohol. Across the Mediterranean, another culture was about to turn drinking into philosophy, celebration, and even politics. By the time ancient Greece became one of the world's greatest civilizations, alcohol had taken on a whole new meaning. For the Greeks, drinking wasn't just about having fun. It was about conversation, ideas, and learning. During gatherings called symposia, people would spend hours discussing philosophy, politics, science, and art while sharing wine. But there was one important rule. The wine was almost always mixed with water. Drinking it straight was often seen as reckless and uncivilized. But the Romans didn't just inherit wine. They built an empire around it. The Romans didn't invent wine, but they perfected the business behind it. As the Roman Empire expanded across Europe, so did its vineyards. From Italy to France, from Spain to Germany, the Romans planted millions of grapevines, built advanced wine presses, and created trade routes that stretched for thousands of miles. Wine became one of the empire's most valuable products. It was served in royal villas, sold in crowded markets, carried by soldiers, and shipped across the Mediterranean in massive clay amphorae. For Rome, wine wasn't just a drink, it was an empire in a cup. But every empire eventually falls, and when Rome collapsed, most people believed the story of wine would end with it. They couldn't have been more wrong. When the Roman Empire collapsed, Europe entered a period of uncertainty. Cities shrank, trade slowed down, and many ancient skills began to disappear. But behind the thick stone walls of quiet monasteries, something unexpected was happening. Monks carefully copied old recipes, improved brewing techniques, and kept the knowledge alive for generations. For them, brewing wasn't just a business. It was part of their daily life, their hospitality, and their tradition. Without realizing it, these monasteries helped preserve centuries of brewing knowledge for the future. Then came an invention, one tiny ingredient that completely changed the taste of beer forever. For centuries, beer didn't taste the way it does today. Early brewers flavored their drinks with herbs, flowers, spices, and whatever plants they could find nearby. Then came hops. At first, people used hops because they helped preserve beer for a longer time. But brewers quickly discovered something even better. Hops added a fresh aroma, a pleasant bitterness, and made beer more stable during long journeys. That single ingredient completely transformed brewing, and it's still one of the most important ingredients in beer today. But beer was about to leave the monastery and become one of the biggest industries the world had ever seen. For thousands of years, brewing was slow. Every batch depended on experience, weather, and a little bit of luck. Then, the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Steam-powered machines replaced much of the hard manual work. New technology made brewing faster, cleaner, and far more consistent than ever before. Factories could now produce thousands of barrels instead of just a few. What had once been a local tradition was becoming a global industry. For the first time in history, beer and wine could be made on a massive scale and shipped around the world. Then came refrigeration. A single invention that completely transformed brewing forever. Before refrigeration, brewing was limited by the seasons. Warm temperatures often spoiled entire batches before they could be enjoyed. Everything changed in the late 19th century. Artificial refrigeration gave brewers complete control over temperature. Beer became cleaner, more consistent, and easier to produce all year long. This breakthrough helped popular styles like lager spread across Europe and eventually the rest of the world. Modern brewing had finally arrived. But just as alcohol reached the peak of its popularity, one country decided to ban it completely. By the early 1900s, alcohol had become one of the biggest industries in America. Then, everything changed overnight. In 1920, the United States officially began prohibition. The production, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages for drinking became illegal under federal law. Supporters believed the ban would reduce crime, improve public health, and strengthen families. But history had a very different plan. Instead of disappearing, alcohol simply went underground. The government tried to stop alcohol, but instead, it accidentally created one of the biggest black markets in American history. Prohibition eventually came to an end. Breweries reopened, winemakers returned to work, and the industry entered a brand new era. Today, modern brewing combines ancient traditions with advanced science. From small family businesses to international companies, the techniques have changed dramatically, but the basic idea hasn't. Take grain or fruit, add time, yeast, and patience, and you're repeating a process that humans have practiced for thousands of years. So, did alcohol build civilization? Maybe not by itself, but it has been traveling beside humanity for at least 9,000 years, and its story is far from over. History is full of stories that change the world, and many of them are stranger than fiction. If you want to discover more forgotten secrets from the past, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay